Tonight, we step quietly into a shadowed part of modern history. A story not told on parade grounds, not announced in victory speeches, but carried in whispers, sealed files, and forgotten names. This is the story of the CIA's secret wars, conflicts fought without uniforms, battles without official declarations, wars that unfolded far from American shores and often far from public awareness. So allow your breathing to slow, let your thoughts soften, and drift gently with this story as it moves calmly through time. After World War II, the world changed shape. Empires weakened, new nations emerged, and two powerful forces rose to face one another across the globe. On one side stood the United States, on the other, the Soviet Union. Between them stretched fear. Fear of influence, fear of ideology, fear of losing control over a fragile post-war world. This quiet tension became known as the Cold War, and in this coldness, new forms of conflict emerged. Leaders believed that open war would be too destructive. Nuclear weapons made traditional battles unthinkable. So instead, struggles moved into the shadows. This was where the Central Intelligence Agency came in. Formed in 1947, the CIA was created to gather information and protect national security. But its role soon expanded. Information alone was no longer enough. Influence became the new battlefield. The CIA was tasked with shaping outcomes without appearing on the map, with guiding events quietly, with preventing unfriendly governments from rising without sending armies. And so, secret wars began. One of the earliest arenas was Europe. After the devastation of World War II, many European nations were weak and unstable. Food was scarce. Governments were fragile. Communist parties gained popularity in places like Italy and France. American leaders feared that ballots could achieve what bombs could not. So the CIA moved carefully. Money was funneled into political campaigns. Media outlets were supported quietly. Labor unions were influenced. Public opinion was nudged subtly. No soldiers marched, no shots were fired. But the direction of nations shifted. These operations were invisible to most citizens. They read newspapers, they voted, they lived their lives, never knowing unseen forces were shaping choices behind the scenes. As the Cold War deepened, attention moved further from Europe. In Iran, 1953, a moment arrived that would define the CIA's role for decades. Iran's prime minister had moved to nationalize the oil industry. This worried Western powers, who feared losing access and influence. The CIA, working with British intelligence, planned a covert operation. Through propaganda, bribes, and political pressure, unrest was encouraged. Protests grew. Confidence weakened. Eventually, the government collapsed. A new leader took power. The operation was considered a success at the time. Quiet, efficient, effective. But years later, consequences would return. Resentment, distrust, revolution. The pattern had begun. In Guatemala, 1954, similar tactics were used. A democratically elected government was seen as too close to communism. So the CIA supported opposition forces. Radio broadcasts spread fear. Military pressure mounted. The government fell. Once again, the conflict remained largely invisible to Americans at home. Newspapers did not speak of CIA involvement. The war existed mostly in classified reports. As decades passed, these secret conflicts multiplied. In Southeast Asia, the CIA entered one of its longest hidden wars. In Laos, a small, mountainous country bordering Vietnam, conflict simmered quietly. The US government feared communist expansion, but Laos was officially neutral. So the CIA built a secret army. Local fighters were trained. Supplies were flown in under cover of night. Airstrips were carved into mountainsides. For years, bombing missions took off without public acknowledgement. Villages were caught in the middle. Lives were altered. At home, Americans watched the Vietnam War on television, unaware that another war unfolded nearby, unseen. Only decades later did the truth fully emerge. In Latin America, the CIA's influence spread through the 1960s and 1970s. Governments rose and fell. Some aligned with US interests, others did not. Where leaders were seen as threats, the CIA intervened. Support was given to military coups. Intelligence was shared. Training was provided. In Chile, a socialist president was elected democratically. The CIA worked to undermine his government economically and politically. Strikes were encouraged. Instability grew. Eventually, the military took power. These events were rarely framed as wars. They were described as operations, interventions, necessary actions. But for those living through them, the impact was real. Families displaced, rights lost, trust broken. Meanwhile, intelligence agents worked quietly, often anonymously, often believing deeply in their mission. They lived double lives, used false names, moved frequently. Some never told their families what they did. Others carried secrets they could never release. The Cold War was not only about weapons, it was about influence. The CIA funded cultural programs, supported artists, sponsored publications. Books were printed, films were promoted, ideas were shaped. The goal was simple: make American values appear natural. Make alternatives seem dangerous. This was soft power, and it worked quietly. In Africa, newly independent nations became battlegrounds of influence. Leaders sought aid, advice, support. The CIA watched closely. Some governments received backing, others faced opposition. Operations were complex, motives mixed, outcomes unpredictable. As the years passed, critics began to speak louder. Journalists uncovered documents. Former agents wrote memoirs. Questions were asked in Congress. The public learned that the CIA had gone far beyond intelligence gathering. Trust wavered. Investigations in the 1970s revealed abuses, illegal surveillance, plots to assassinate foreign leaders, operations conducted without oversight. Reforms followed. Rules were written. Committees formed. But secrecy never fully disappeared. The Cold War continued. In Afghanistan, the CIA supported fighters resisting Soviet occupation. Weapons were supplied. Training was given. The conflict weakened the Soviet Union, but also planted seeds for future instability. History rarely moves in straight lines. When the Cold War ended, many believed the era of secret wars would fade. The Soviet Union collapsed. Walls fell. Tensions eased. But intelligence operations continued. The world had changed. Threats were different. But secrecy remained. The CIA adapted. New enemies emerged. New strategies developed. Technology transformed intelligence work. Satellites replaced spies in some roles. Data replaced whispers. Yet human decisions still mattered. Looking back now, the CIA's secret wars raise difficult questions. Can democracy survive secrecy? Can stability justify intervention? Can unseen actions create unseen harm? There are no easy answers. Some operations prevented violence. Others caused it. Some agents believed they protected peace. Others later questioned their roles. History does not judge quietly. It waits, then speaks slowly. Tonight, as this story settles into silence, we remember that power is most dangerous when hidden, and most responsible when questioned. The secret wars did not happen in isolation. They shaped nations, lives, the world we now inhabit. And now, they rest where all stories eventually go, into memory. Let the shadows soften. Let the noise fade. The world outside is quiet. The past is distant. And sleep comes gently, carrying these echoes away.